Before love, wife, her mother and grandmother came into the picture. There was a journey that needed to be seen. Let's look into it. In the quiet town of Nsukka, life had never been kind to Mama Nina. Born into a humble family and married off young to her childhood love, Obinna. She had carried a simple dream in her heart, that love would be enough to sustain them through life's storms. For a time it was. Obinna was a dedicated primary school teacher, patient with children and respected in their little community. Nina, a seamstress, worked with steady hands, threading dreams into every piece of cloth she touched. Together they built a modest existence. Their clay-walled home was no palace. Its roof rusted, its floor bare, but within those walls lived warmth, laughter, and faith. At night, their love took on a rhythm of companionship. By the dim glow of a kerosene lantern, Nina's sewing machine clicked while Obinna bent over a stack of exercise books, his pen scratching as he graded. Sometimes, she hummed softly to drown the sound of mosquitoes buzzing in the dark. Other times, he would pause to smile at her and say, "Nina, when Amarachi comes, she will wear clothes you made with these very hands." She would blush, pretending not to hear. Years of waiting finally ended in joy when Nina conceived. Her pregnancy was a miracle, and when her child arrived, she named her Amarachi, God's grace. That baby girl brought light into their world. Neighbors rejoiced with them, and Obinna walked with a new pride, carrying his daughter on his shoulders, telling anyone who cared to listen, "This one will bring greatness." Their happiness was indescribable, but joy, as always, was fragile. When Amarachi was just 2 years old, Obinna fell ill. It began as a fever, something they thought ordinary, but it worsened day by day. They tried everything within reach. Bitter local herbs, fervent prayers, rushed hospital visits paid for by borrowed money. Nothing worked. His once strong body grew frail. His laughter faded into labored breaths, until one fateful night when he slipped away in Nina's arms. The silence he left behind was deafening. Nina's world shattered. She wept until her voice cracked, until her eyes swelled shut. Neighbors whispered that grief might carry her to the grave, that she had lost the will to live. But one morning, with trembling hands and a heart that still bled, she rose. She strapped Amarachi to her back, carried her sewing machine, her only inheritance, to the market and claimed a small patch of space in front of a shop. There, she mended uniforms, patched torn trousers, stitched baby dresses, and sold sachet water just to scrape together coins. Life was harsh. Many nights, mother and daughter dined on nothing more than gari soaked in water with groundnuts. Rainstorms turned their home into a flood, buckets spread across the floor to catch the endless leaks. Yet, through it all, Nina shielded Amarachi with love. She told her folktales by lantern light, sang her lullabies that spoke of hope, and prayed over her head each night. She had no gold to pass down, but she gave her child something richer: confidence, discipline, and a spirit that refused to bend. When Amarachi turned 10, Nina made her greatest sacrifice yet. She sold her most treasured wrapper and the last piece of jewelry Obinna had ever given her, a gold chain, just to buy textbooks and a new school uniform. People mocked her. Why waste money on a girl's education? Tomorrow she will marry, and all this will be for nothing. But Nina's response never wavered. This child will wipe my tears. If books will make her fly, let her fly. And Amarachi did fly. She was brilliant, respectful, and hardworking. She topped every class, her teachers praising her diligence. Though her mother could not afford private school, Amarachi read by candlelight, night after night, her small fingers tracing words that would one day change her destiny. At 18, she gained admission into the University of Lagos. When the news arrived, Nina danced, ululating like a woman who had won a lottery. She wept tears of joy, her heart swelling with gratitude that her sacrifices had borne fruit. Yet, behind the joy was a new battle: the cost of tuition, transport, accommodation, and textbooks. To pay, Nina sold more wrappers, took on laundry jobs, borrowed from cooperatives, and endured hunger without complaint. She carried her suffering in silence, never letting Amarachi feel like a burden. Struggles in Lagos. University life was both a dream and a test. Lagos was fast, chaotic, and unforgiving. Prices soared. The city demanded more than Amarachi could ever imagine. Registration fees, textbooks, transport fares, even food. Every day seemed to bring a new expense. Whenever Amarachi called home, her mother's voice was steady, full of encouragement. But behind every "I'm fine, my child" was exhaustion. Amarachi knew the truth. Every word of reassurance cost another sleepless night bent over a sewing machine, another wrapper pawned, another skipped meal. Determined not to only take, Amarachi began her own hustle. It started small, tutoring classmates for small tips. Soon, she earned a reputation as the girl who could solve any maths. Then she noticed something else. Many girls struggled with chores. She expanded into washing and ironing clothes, even cleaning rooms. The insults came quickly. Some sneered, "Fine girl washing panties for chicken change." But Amarachi stood firm. She remembered Mama's words, "A child that is humble won't go to bed hungry." By her second year, Amarachi was not only the smartest in her class but also the most dependable. She helped classmates register for courses, shared her food when they were broke, and still never missed a lecture. Her clothes were old, but her head remained high. At night, she sometimes cried in silence, pressing her pillow to her face. But in the stillness she always heard her mother's voice. Suffering doesn't kill, it makes you stronger. And Lagos did make her stronger. Every hunger pang, every insult, every night of struggle was molding Amarachi into something unbreakable. She did not yet know it, but she was being forged into a lioness, one prepared to face storms greater than examinations. A new curiosity. By her third year, Amarachi was no longer the timid girl who had arrived from Nsukka. Lagos had reshaped her. She was confident, bold, and disciplined, a woman who could navigate both the classroom and the street. Yet, beneath her strength, a quiet stirring began, a longing she had always pushed aside. Her friends had boyfriends. They giggled over late-night calls, shared meals, whispered about kisses and secret touches. Amarachi smiled along, but inside she felt something gnaw at her, a loneliness she couldn't name. She had always kept her distance from boys, carrying her mother's warning like armor. "Your book is your husband for now." But at 20, she yearned for something more than grades and survival. She wanted affection, companionship, a pair of arms around her at night. Someone to see her not as the girl who washed and ironed for others, but as a woman deserving of tenderness. Someone who would look past the hustler and see Amarachi, the girl who once read by candlelight, the child of sacrifice, the daughter of God's grace. The beginning of love. That someone came in the form of Toby. Unlike the loud, boastful boys who filled the university campus with swagger and empty promises, Toby was different. He was quiet, almost shy, yet his silence was never empty. He was smart, the kind who listened more than he spoke, and when he finally did, his words carried thoughtfulness. His eyes always seemed to linger on Amarachi in class, but he never dared approach. So, when she began to sit beside him during lectures and spark conversations, he was stunned. He could hardly believe that the girl he had admired from a distance was now leaning close to him, laughing softly at his shy jokes, borrowing his pen, asking about assignments. What began as study sessions in the library grew into shared laughter, then deeper conversations about their lives, dreams, and scars. One quiet evening, after weeks of friendship, Toby's resolve cracked. They had just left the library, walking side by side, their arms occasionally brushing. His voice trembled when he finally spoke. "I like you. I've always liked you." Amarachi's heart skipped. For a moment, she wanted to tease him, but her own truth pressed against her lips. Nervously, she whispered, "Maybe, I like you too." And just like that, the seed of first love sprouted in both their hearts. First love. Their relationship blossomed in the most ordinary, yet extraordinary ways. Toby had very little, no fancy clothes, no flashy phone, no car to impress. But what he had, he gave. He shared food when she was hungry, airtime when she needed to make calls, and most of all, his presence. Amarachi noticed something rare in him. He respected her boundaries. He never pushed, never demanded more than she was ready to give. At first, she found it refreshing, almost sweet. But as weeks turned into months, curiosity stirred. Why had he never even hinted at intimacy? Didn't he find her desirable? One evening, after walking him halfway home, the question escaped her lips in a whisper. Should I come over tonight? He froze, his eyes wide with disbelief. For a moment, she thought she had offended him. But then he gave a nervous smile. I didn't want to rush you. Her lips curved into a smile. Well, I want to. That night was tender and clumsy, filled with nervous laughter and whispered reassurances. Toby admitted he was a virgin. When it finally happened, it was far from perfect. Awkward, shy, uncertain. But to them it was holy. Two scarred souls, two weary fighters, had found a soft place in each other. The next morning, Amarachi sat on the edge of his bed, watching sunlight creep through the thin curtains. She didn't feel ashamed, or used, or afraid. For the first time, she felt seen, loved, alive, innocence and ignorance. After that night, intimacy wove itself into their rhythm. Amarachi would call him late at night with hushed urgency. I'm coming over. Don't sleep yet. I miss you. And he would wait, smiling shyly when she arrived. They grew closer, their love deepening. But beneath it all lay a fatal flaw: innocence. Neither of them thought about protection. There were no condoms, no pills, no plan. It wasn't rebellion or carelessness, it was ignorance. They believed in their little bubble of love, thinking affection itself was shield enough against the consequences of intimacy. But life has no mercy for innocence. The awakening. Weeks later, Amarachi noticed changes in her body. Fatigue weighed her down. Her breasts felt sore. Her appetite twisted strangely. Then came the missed periods, first one, then another. She told herself stories. It's stress. Exams are coming. Maybe it's from all the hustling. Maybe it's nothing. But deep down, the truth loomed like a shadow she could not outrun. One afternoon, unable to bear the silence in her thoughts, she walked into a small pharmacy tucked between two kiosks. She bought a pregnancy test with shaky hands, returned to her room, and locked the door. Minutes later, she sat on the floor, staring at the plastic strip. Two red lines stared back at her. Her hands trembled. Her breath caught. She did not cry. She did not scream. She just sat, frozen, as though the world had stopped turning. Everything replayed in her mind. Her mother's sacrifices, Obina's death, her mother's voice saying, "Your book is your husband." Years of poverty, years of carrying responsibility so carefully, years of guarding her dreams, undone in a single moment of innocence. Amarachi was pregnant. The confession. It took her 3 long days to gather the courage to speak. In those days, food tasted like sand. Her chest felt heavy, and nights brought no sleep. Finally, one evening, she called her 2 closest friends, Cynthia and Mira, to her room. Her voice was small, trembling. "I think I'm pregnant." The room fell silent. Cynthia's brows furrowed. "Think? You're not sure." With trembling fingers, Amarachi reached into her bag and pulled out the test kit. She held it out with shaking hands. 2 glaring red lines. "I took the test. It's positive." Cynthia's jaw dropped. Mira gasped and covered her mouth. "Jesus, Amara, Mira Vispirid." Then came the questions like bullets. "Didn't you use protection?"
No pills, no condoms.
Amarachi lowered her head, tears blurring her vision. "I didn't know what to take. I trusted him. I didn't ask. I didn't want to look ignorant." Cynthia began pacing, anger and frustration bursting out. "Amara, this is not secondary school. This is real life. You mean you've been doing it raw all this time?" Amarachi broke. Her tears spilled freely, and her voice cracked. "I didn't know. I didn't know." Silence followed, thick and heavy. Finally, Cynthia sighed. her tone softening. You know we love you. We're not judging you. But this is serious. You've made a huge mistake. Now we need to figure out what comes next. Amarachi choked on her greatest fear. I don't want to disappoint my mum. She has suffered too much for me. Mira reached across, taking her hand. Then we'll think carefully. But promise us something, no more silence. No more shame. If you don't understand, you ask. We'll walk with you. That night, the three of them stayed together. They whispered, they cried, they argued about possibilities. And when dawn broke, Amarachi was still terrified. But at least she was not alone. Telling Toby. The next morning, Amarachi sat staring at her phone. Her thumb hovered over Toby's number. Her heart pounded so loudly she thought she could hear it echoing. When he finally answered, his voice was cheerful, warm. Hey babe, what's up? Her own voice cracked. Toby, there's something I need to tell you. It's important. A pause. Then softly.
Okay, I'm listening.
Amarachi closed her eyes, inhaled, and dropped the weight.
I'm pregnant.
Silence. Long, suffocating. Finally, he spoke, his voice barely audible. Wait, what did you say? She repeated, slower this time, tears burning her eyes.
I'm pregnant, Toby.
I took a test. It's positive. Another long silence. Then the line clicked. He had ended the call. Amarachi blinked, disbelieving. She dialed again. Switched off. Again. Still switched off. Panic clawed at her chest. She grabbed her bag, ran out, and boarded a Kiki to his apartment. When she arrived, breathless, the caretaker met her at the gate. Ah, that boy packed his bag this morning and left. Didn't tell anyone where. You're the second person looking for him today. Her body went cold. He had left. Just like that. She hadn't expected a proposal. She hadn't expected celebration. But abandonment? That cut deeper than anything. Silent tears rolled down her cheeks as she turned away. For the first time in her life, Amarachi felt utterly, devastatingly alone. Back home, unable to face the whispers of her classmates or the suffocating silence of her room, Amarachi packed a small bag and boarded a night bus to Nsuka. Her heart was heavy, her body weak, her mind in chaos. When she arrived at dawn, Mama Nina was in the backyard peeling yam. She looked up in surprise. Amara? My daughter? What are you doing here without calling? What happened? The words barely left her lips before Amarachi collapsed to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. The knife clattered from Nina's hand as she rushed forward, pulling her child into her arms. No questions.
No judgment.
Just the fierce embrace of a mother who knew her child was breaking. That night, Mama said nothing. She simply served her rice and stew, sat quietly as Amarachi forced spoonfuls down, and later guided her to her childhood bed. She tucked her in like she was still 10 years old, then sat silently by her side until her sobs softened into sleep. In that silence, Amarachi felt the only thing she had left, her mother's love, the truth. By morning, Amarachi tied a faded wrapper around her waist and shuffled into the kitchen. Her steps were slow, her face drawn. Mama Nina, already sitting on a low stool peeling yam, studied her quietly. She noticed everything. The puff beneath her daughter's eyes, the way her wrapper hung differently over her waist, the heaviness in her movements. A mother always knows. For a long while, the only sound was the scrape of the knife against the yam skin and the bubbling of the pot on the fire. Then, in a voice soft but piercing, Mama asked, Amara, how many weeks late are you? The knife slipped from Amarachi's fingers and clattered against the tray. Her throat tightened. She turned, eyes wide with unshed tears. Mama, her voice cracked. That's why I came home. I made a mistake. I don't know what to do.
I'm pregnant.
The words hung in the smoky kitchen air like thunder. Mama set the knife down carefully, her movements deliberate, as though the truth might shatter if touched too quickly. She lowered herself onto a stool, her face blank, her hands heavy on her lap. Amarachi dropped to her knees before her, weeping.
I'm sorry, Mama.
He left me. He didn't even say goodbye. I don't know what to do. I'm so sorry. For a moment, Mama just stared at her, her breathing slow, her shoulders rising and falling. Then she sighed deeply, the sound carrying years of buried sorrow. You've already done it, she said quietly. There's no taking it back now. Her hand reached out, rough and calloused from years at the sewing machine, and rested on her daughter's trembling shoulder. I was your age when I carried you. I had no one to cry to, no one to help me. When your father died, I raised you with my bare hands. Do you think I had a choice? No, I only had strength. Amarachi's sobs deepened, her forehead pressed to her mother's knee. Yes, you made a mistake, Mama continued, her voice firm but not unkind. But it is not the end. Life doesn't end because of one stumble. If I could raise you alone, then you too will stand. It will be hard, Amara. It will be shameful at first. But strength is only born in fire. Then, softening, she pulled her daughter into her arms, rocking her like a child again. You are my daughter. This child is my grandchild. And you will not face this alone. A new resolve. Later that afternoon, beneath the broad mango tree where neighbors often came to rest, Mama peeled an orange slowly. Her voice was calm, steady, carrying the authority of someone who had made up her mind. You will keep this baby, Amarachi, she said firmly. After you give birth, you will return to school. This child will stay with me. Don't worry. I will raise him or her. That is my joy. Amarachi blinked in shock. Mama, you'll do that for me? A small smile tugged at Mama's lips. Her lined face softened. Do you know how lonely this compound has been? Do you know how many nights I sit by myself, wishing for the sound of a child's laughter again? Even a baby's cry will fill this house with life. You must finish your studies. That's what matters now. Tears of relief poured down Amarachi's cheeks as she threw her arms around her mother. Mama, thank you. I was so scared. I thought my life was finished. Mama stroked her back gently, her voice low and firm. It's not finished. It's just changing. And you must be strong enough to change with it. That evening, Amarachi sat by the window of her childhood room. The sky burned orange as the sun sank behind the hills. She placed her hand on her belly, tears spilling quietly. We'll be okay, she whispered. We'll both be okay. Back to school. 2 weeks later, Amarachi returned to campus for her final semester. Her mother had pressed a few crumpled Naira notes into her palm, whispering, Go, my child. Don't give up now. Amarachi wore loose gowns that draped over her growing belly. She kept her head down, avoided curious eyes, and walked quickly through the campus grounds. Only a few close friends knew her condition, and even they didn't know the full story. But whispers followed her everywhere. Pity in some eyes, judgment in others. Some people laughed behind her back. Others muttered, So she too has fallen. Amarachi kept moving. She woke early, studied late, and forced her weary body through every lecture. When her feet swelled, she wrapped them with cloth. When the headaches came, she pressed her palms against her temples and endured. By the time her last exam ended, her stomach was heavy and her back ached constantly. Climbing the staircase to the exam hall had been torture, but she had done it. She was finished with school. That same evening, she boarded a bus back to Nsukka. When Mama opened the door and saw her daughter standing there, she didn't ask for results or details. She simply stretched her arms wide and pulled her in. You came home safe. That's all that matters. The struggle, the weeks that followed were difficult. Money was almost non-existent. Mama had already borrowed from her women's group to cover Amarachi's school needs, leaving nothing for hospital visits. Amarachi managed one antenatal checkup. After that, they stayed home, praying and trusting God for the rest. Meals were simple: boiled yam with palm oil, pap with groundnut. But Amarachi smiled often, patting her stomach when the baby kicked. The tiny thumps inside her brought laughter even in hunger. But one night, everything changed. The pain came suddenly, sharp, searing, relentless. Amarachi screamed, her voice tearing through the quiet compound. Mama rushed into the room, panic in her eyes. "Mama, it's time," Amarachi gasped, clutching her stomach. But something was wrong. The pain was unbearable. Amarachi couldn't stand, and blood stained her wrapper. Mama wrapped a cloth around her own waist and sprinted barefoot down the road, banging on doors until she reached the nurse's house. The old nurse arrived quickly with her worn leather bag. After examining Amarachi, her expression darkened. "The baby isn't coming down. She needs a hospital immediately." But the nearest hospital was a town away. No car, no money. Midnight. Mama fell to her knees, begging neighbors for help. Finally, one man agreed to take them on his motorcycle. Amarachi, half-conscious, was wedged between two people as the bike sped into the night. By the time they reached the hospital, she was bleeding heavily. Life and death. The nurses rushed her into the ward. The air was thick with urgency. The baby was too large. Amarachi had lost too much blood. Outside, Mama Nina fell to her knees beneath the moonlight, her rosary clutched tight. "God, you gave me one child. Please don't take her. Don't leave me empty. Please, God, save her." Hours passed like years. Finally, a nurse emerged, her face weary but relieved. "She's alive, and so is the baby." Mama collapsed on the ground, sobbing. "Thank you, God, thank you." The doctors explained Amarachi had needed an emergency cesarean. Any further delay, and both mother and child would have been lost. Inside, Amarachi lay pale but breathing. Beside her, in a small cot, was a chubby baby girl weighing 5.1 kilograms. Amarachi's lips trembled as she whispered, "Mama." She made it. Mama kissed her forehead, tears streaming. "You both made it." She lifted the baby and whispered, "Your name will be Alyomachukwu, the work of God." But Amarachi was slipping, her lips pale, her breath shallow. The bleeding hadn't stopped. The doctor approached urgently. "We need to transfuse her. Her blood type is O negative. We don't have it here. We've sent for it from the general hospital. Please pray." The wait was agony. 2 hours later, the blood arrived. They began the transfusion. Minutes later, alarms blared. Amarachi's body convulsed. Her pulse spiked. Her eyes rolled back. "Doctor, she's going into shock." The room filled with frantic voices, machines, and desperate hands. Then silence. The doctor stepped out, head bowed. I'm sorry, Ma. She didn't make it." Mama collapsed, a scream tearing from her chest. "Amarachi, my only child. You promised to care for me in old age. You left me. You left your baby." Inside the ward, her newborn lay quietly in the cot, unaware she had just lost her mother. A new beginning in grief. Amarachi was buried in a simple ceremony. No coffin of grandeur, no marble grave. Just a mound of red earth, tears, and silence. Her university friends wept bitterly, unable to believe the strong, brilliant girl they had admired was gone. The baby was named Alyomachukwu, but Mama gave her another name too, Nena, after her late daughter. She whispered it with reverence, believing her daughter's spirit had returned through the child. From that day, Mama transformed. She tied her headscarf tighter, straightened her back, and carried the baby on her own. She was no longer just a grieving mother. She was a grandmother with a mission, raising Alyoma. From dawn to dusk, Mama poured herself into the baby. She cooked, bathed her, sang lullabies. She whispered prayers over her soft head each night. Neighbors often stopped by and heard the child's laughter ringing through the compound. They smiled, shaking their heads. That child is her grandmother's copy. Alyoma grew up thinking Mama was her mother. It wasn't deception, it was survival. When the time was right, Mama sat her down, her voice tender. "Your real mummy, Amarachi. She loved you more than life itself. But she went to heaven the day you were born. I am your grandmother. But it's okay if you call me Mummy. I need someone to call me that too." At 4 years old, Alyoma whispered shyly, "Mummy." Mama's heart broke and healed at once. She hugged her tightly, tears streaming. From that moment, She wore the name proudly. She sold vegetables at the market, carried Alyama to school, clasping her small hand like treasure. Teachers marveled at the child's brilliance. Mama only smiled quietly and thought, yes, just like her mother. At night, when Alyama woke from bad dreams, Mama rocked her in her arms, humming the same lullaby she once sang to Amarachi. My good child, go in peace. Mummy is here with you. Alyama grew not in riches, but in love and wisdom. And though grief never left Mama's heart, every time the little girl called her Mummy, she felt life had given her a second chance, breaking the pattern. When Alyama reached adolescence, Mama began to notice the little changes. The way her granddaughter tied wrappers higher around her chest. The way she washed certain clothes separately and dried them discreetly in the corner. The way her steps grew taller, her body softer, her voice heavier. Mama didn't wait for silence to teach her child mistakes. She remembered all too well the price of ignorance. One breezy Sunday evening, as the golden light of dusk filtered through the raffia blinds, she called Alyama into her room. The old wooden wardrobe creaked as Mama opened it, pulling out a small cloth bag she had hidden carefully. Alyama, sit down, she said, her voice firm but kind. You're growing into a woman now. We must talk. Alyama sat on the edge of the bed, her eyes wide with curiosity. Mama opened the bag and placed its contents on the bedspread. Packs of sanitary pads, neatly folded new underwear, and a small, well-worn booklet. When I was your age, Mama began slowly, her gaze fixed on her granddaughter. I didn't know much. My mother never taught me. I learned through shame, through pain. I made mistakes. And your mother too, Amarachi. She didn't even finish school before she carried you. Alyama's breath caught. Mama, you too? Mama nodded, her eyes far away for a moment. Yes, my child. I too stumbled. But I made a vow when you were placed in my arms as a baby, that this cycle ends with you. You will not repeat my mistakes. You will walk a straighter road than your mother and I walked. Her voice grew sharper, carrying the weight of warning. Listen to me, Alyama. Boys will come. They will smile, say sweet words, promise you the sky, offer you gifts. But those things fade. What stays are the scars they leave when they take what they should not. Don't let anyone touch your body without first securing your future. Your beauty is a gift, yes, but without wisdom, that beauty can destroy you. She pressed the small booklet into Alyama's hands. This will teach you things I learned too late. How to care for your body. How to protect yourself. Read it, know it, and remember. Be the first in this family to graduate, to marry at the right time, to live free from the shame we carried. Alyama's eyes welled with tears. She clutched the booklet to her chest and whispered, I promise, Mama, I won't disappoint you. Mama reached forward, brushing the tears from her cheeks with her rough thumb. Good child. May your footsteps be brighter than ours. A new season. Life began to shift. Mama's small provision shop, once just a wooden table with biscuits and sachet water, started to grow. She added crates of soft drinks, baskets of gari, bags of rice, even second-hand clothes. People in the neighborhood trusted her honesty. Her scales never cheated. Her prices were always fair. Slowly, for the first time in years, peace of mind returned to her. Every afternoon after school, Alyama would hurry back, her school bag still on her shoulder, to sweep the shop, arrange shelves, and serve customers. She did it joyfully, smiling as she handed out change or tied small nylon bags of salt. Neighbors praised her polite greetings and cheerful nature. But Mama never stopped guiding her. As they arranged goods one evening, Mama said, Money is sweet, my daughter. It makes life easier. But remember this. Money cannot repair a damaged life. Finish school first. Chase your dreams first. Love and marriage will come later, but let them meet you prepared. Alyama nodded earnestly, storing her grandmother's words deep in her heart. She had learned to carry her mother's story not as a chain of shame, but as a guiding warning. Chibuzo. It was during this new season that a man appeared. Chibuzo. He was in his mid-30s, tall, dark-skinned, always neatly dressed with a trimmed beard and soft, careful voice. He had recently moved from the city and built a modest bungalow on a plot not far from Mama's street. At first, he came casually, one evening for detergent and Maggi cubes, the next day for soap and matches, the day after biscuits and chewing gum. His visits soon became a pattern, always in the evening when Alyama was back from school and behind the counter. Mama noticed. She always noticed. One evening, she teased lightly as she packed his change. "Chibuzo, are you cooking 10 times a day? You've been here every evening, oh." He chuckled nervously, rubbing the back of his neck. "Ah, Mama, I just like buying from here and talking with good people." But Mama's eyes were sharp. She had lived long enough to read men. She saw the way his gaze lingered on Alyama, subtle but steady, the way he timed his visits to catch her presence. Alyama noticed too, though she hid it well. Each time he came, she greeted him politely, handed him his goods, and returned to her books or chores with calm indifference. Her composure, her respectful distance, only seemed to deepen his curiosity. Then one evening, unable to help himself, Chibuzo asked, "Alyama, how old are you?" She looked him squarely in the eyes and answered quietly, but with weight, "I'll be 17 in 3 months." The air shifted. Chibuzo blinked, stunned. Her composure, her beauty, her maturity. Everything had made him assume she was older, perhaps already in her 20s. Realization hit him like a blow. She was still a child. A sudden weight pressed on his chest. For the first time, shame chased him out of the shop. The warning. That evening, after he left unusually quiet, Mama called Alyama into her room. "My daughter," she began, her tone steady but with an edge of steel. "You see that man who comes here every evening, buying small nonsense?" Alyama chuckled softly, lowering her gaze. "Yes, Mama. I've been watching you. You've been wise not to entertain him. But hear me now. Men like that, no matter how polished they look, can destroy a girl's future if she's not careful." "I know, Mama," Alyama said quietly. "He asked my age today. When I told him, he looked shocked. I think he won't bother me again."
Mama nodded, satisfied.
"Good. Let him know you are still a child. Let him know you are not ready. Your mother fell too early. You will not. We have carried enough shame in this family. You will not add to it." From that day on, Chibuzo's visits changed. He still stopped by occasionally, but now with restraint. He greeted politely, bought only what he truly needed, and left quickly. The lingering looks faded, and Mama, watching closely from her seat behind the counter, whispered a silent prayer of thanks. "God, may this girl never walk the road her mother walked." His admiration. Chibuzo's admiration slowly shifted. At first, it had been the simple spark of attraction, a young girl's beauty catching his eye. But with time, that spark grew into something steadier. He saw how Alyama carried herself, always modest, never boastful. He saw her discipline, her diligence in helping Mama at the shop, her respect toward elders, her quiet maturity that seemed older than her years. Soon, his thoughts of her were not filled only with admiration of her face or figure, but with respect. Respect for the way she ignored gossip. Respect for the way she poured herself into her studies. Respect for the way she honored Mama, who had raised her with not just love, but with vision. And Alyama? She noticed his presence, but she remained focused. On her books, on her dreams, on the sacred wisdom Mama had pressed into her heart again and again. Your future first. Love will come later. Let it meet you prepared. The proposal. It happened one dusky evening. The orange sun was sliding low over Nsuka, the air filled with the chatter of returning market women and the smell of roasted corn from the roadside. Mama sat in front of her provision shop peeling garden eggs, her wrapper tied loosely around her chest. Chibuzo approached, not in his usual work clothes, but in a crisp white shirt tucked neatly into dark trousers. His shoes shone. His hair was freshly trimmed. He carried himself differently, as though preparing for a moment that mattered. He bowed respectfully. "Mama, good evening." "Nah, welcome," Mama replied, eyeing him curiously. "You came late today. Hope all is well." All is well, Mama. But... He hesitated, drawing in a slow breath as though steadying his heart. I was hoping we could talk. Privately. Mama raised an eyebrow, folding her wrapper neatly over her knees. Talk? About what? Chibuzo's voice trembled slightly, but his eyes were firm. It's about Alyama. Mama stiffened, immediately alert. Her eyes narrowed. Is she all right? Yes, Mama, he said quickly, shaking his head. She is fine. In fact, very fine. I came to tell you, I want to marry her. The words landed like a stone in still water, rippling through the air. Mama blinked once, twice, her hands frozen on the garden egg knife. You want to what? I want to marry Alyama, Chibuzo repeated, this time with quiet confidence. I have thought about it carefully. She is respectful, hardworking, well-raised. That is the kind of woman I want as my wife. I know she is young, but I'm not here to deceive anyone. I am ready to come properly, the way tradition demands, and wait until the time is right. For a long moment, Mama simply studied him. He stood tall, yet humble. His words were not careless like those of boys who whispered in corners. They were deliberate, measured, bold. He was decent, respectful, and brave. Still, in her heart, a war raged. This girl was her treasure. Emirachi's only gift to her. Could she hand her over? At last, she spoke, her voice low. You surprised me, Chibuzo. Not because you want her. Many men want a beautiful, respectful girl. But you came openly with clean words.
No hiding.
No games. Chibuzo bowed his head. I understand what she means to you, Mama. That's why I came straight. Mama sighed, her eyes misty. She is not just a girl to me. She is my second chance. Her mother made mistakes too early. I have done everything to ensure she does not repeat them. I understand, Mama, Chibuzo replied quietly. And I will wait. I will prove myself however long it takes. Mama looked at him long and hard. Finally, she said, let me pray on it. Then I'll speak to her myself. Thank you, Mama, he said, bowing deeply before walking away into the gathering dusk. Mama remained on the bench long after he left, staring at the horizon. Perhaps this man was different. Perhaps God had finally remembered her. But she knew the next step was not hers. It was Alyama's. The conversation. That night, after supper, Mama sat beside Alyama as the girl combed her thick hair. The lamp flickered, casting shadows on the wall. Mama's tone was calm but serious. Alyama, she began slowly. Something happened today. Chibuzo came. He said he wants to marry you. The comb froze mid-stroke. Alyama's eyes widened. Chibuzo? The man with the fine car and the big wristwatch. Mama chuckled softly despite herself. Yes, that one. He said he has been admiring you. Alyama frowned, her brows knitting. But Mama, isn't he too old for me? Age doesn't carry marriage, Mama replied gently. Understanding does. He told me he will wait until you are 18. He even agreed to support your education. Alyama lowered her eyes, her heart pounding. Mama, marriage scares me. I am still young. I don't want to regret anything. I don't even know how to be a wife. Mama placed a firm hand on her shoulder. I understand, my child. But if he is truly sincere, he is offering not just marriage, but stability, respect, and a home. And you will not go through it alone. I will be here, to guide you, to teach you. Alyama's voice dropped to a whisper. Mama, you know I'm still a virgin. Yes? Mama said firmly, pride shining in her eyes. And that is something worth protecting. I told him no touching until marriage. He agreed without hesitation. That, to me, is a sign of seriousness. Relief flickered across Alyama's face. So what happens now? Tomorrow, Mama said with a soft smile. He will come again. You will sit with him yourself. Look him in the eyes. And decide. The decision. The next morning, Chibuzo arrived. He looked neat and confident, his shirt freshly pressed. He greeted Mama respectfully and waited patiently under the mango tree, his hands clasped. When Alyama came out, her heart raced. She wore a modest gown, her hair braided neatly, her steps slow but steady. She sat opposite him, her gaze steady despite the pounding in her chest. "My grandmother said you want to marry me," she said plainly. "Yes," Chibuzo replied. "I do. I am not yet 18. I am still in school. I am not ready to be anyone's wife now. But I respect your honesty." "I will wait," Chibuzo said quickly. "And I will support you. I promise." Alyama studied him for a long moment, then spoke firmly. "If this is serious, you will handle my school fees. You will wait until marriage before anything intimate. And you will give me time."
No rushing.
Chibuzo nodded firmly. Agreed. Every word. "Then," she said softly, "go and do it properly. Meet Mama. Meet my people. Let them see you mean it." Chibuzo rose, gratitude shining in his eyes. "I will. Thank you, Alyama." From the doorway, Mama Nena watched, tears brimming. Amarachi never reached the altar. But perhaps, just perhaps, Alyama would be the first to marry right. New light. From that day, Chibuzo's presence no longer carried uncertainty. He came with purpose, with gifts that were never excessive but always thoughtful. Sometimes he brought foodstuff. Other times he simply sat with Mama, helping to lift crates or repair broken shelves in the shop. One sunny Thursday, however, he came with something different. In his hands, he carried a bouquet of fresh flowers and a neatly packaged box. "For the most beautiful girl in this village," he said with a grin, handing them to Alyama. Her cheeks flushed. "You're spoiling me, Chibuzo. I haven't even started," he teased. He opened the box, revealing a stunning red dinner gown. Classy, elegant, chosen with care. "I want to take you out this Saturday," he said, "to a proper restaurant in town. Not just for food, but for you to feel like the queen you are." Mama, watching from her chair, felt her heart soften. "God bless you, Chibuzo," she said quietly. "My daughter never had this chance. But you're restoring my faith that joy can still come." Chibuzo turned to her respectfully. "Mama, I am doing this for her. And for you. You are like a mother to me now." That Saturday, Mama helped dress Alyama in the red gown. Her hands trembled as she braided her hair, tears sliding down her cheeks. "You look just like Amarachi," she whispered. "But your story will be different. Full of joy." When Alyama stepped outside, Chibuzo's breath caught. She looked radiant, glowing, no longer just the shy girl at the shop counter, but a graceful young woman. "You're beautiful," he said softly, almost reverently. Alyama lowered her eyes, smiling shyly. "Thank you." The first date. Chibuzo opened the car door with care, and Alyama slipped in shyly. As they drove into the city, she pressed her hands nervously against her gown, her heart beating wildly. At the restaurant, she felt out of place at first. The gleaming cutlery, the menus filled with dishes she couldn't pronounce, the soft jazz music. Everything felt foreign. She looked down, embarrassed. But Chibuzo leaned close, his voice warm. "Don't worry, just follow me." Patiently, he guided her, showing her which fork to use, laughing gently whenever she made a mistake until she too laughed. Slowly, she relaxed. Soon, they were sharing food, clinking glasses and laughing freely. That night, under the glittering city lights, something shifted in her heart. For the first time, Alyama felt she wasn't just a granddaughter or a survivor of her mother's story. She was a young woman being loved, genuinely. When she returned home, Mama was waiting on the veranda, her hands clasped. Alyama rushed into her arms, whispering, "Mama, I think he really loves me." Mama's eyes glistened as she stroked her hair. "I know he does, my daughter. And tonight, your mother is smiling down from heaven." The 18th birthday. When Alyama turned 18, the village had never seen such a celebration. Chibuzo planned it all. A feast so grand it felt like a wedding. White tents rose in the compound, golden chairs glimmered under fairy lights, and the aroma of jollof rice, peppered goat meat, and fried fish filled the air. Drummers beat joy into the night. Women danced with wrappers tied tight around their waists, and children laughed as they chased balloons. Mama Nena, radiant in her finest lace and tall geli, watched with pride as her granddaughter stepped out in a stunning emerald gown. Alyima's beauty had blossomed, her smile dazzling, her skin glowing with the confidence of womanhood. And, of course, her eyes found Chibuzo. After the birthday song and the cutting of the towering cake, Chibuzo took the microphone. The music faded. The crowd hushed. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice steady but full of feeling. "Today is not just Alyima's birthday. It is the day the girl I love becomes a woman. And I want to spend my life with her." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Alyima froze, her breath caught. Chibuzo knelt, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. "Alyima," he said, his voice breaking with emotion. "Will you marry me?" Tears filled her eyes. Her hand flew to her mouth. Then, trembling, she whispered, "Yes." The compound erupted in cheers, clapping, ululations. Some wept openly. Mama Nena fell to her knees, her hands lifted toward the heavens. "Amarachi!" she cried, tears running freely. "Your child is being honored. What you didn't enjoy, she is receiving double." That night, under a canopy of stars, Alyima was no longer just a girl admired. She became a bride-to-be, her story unfolding as a tale of love, redemption, and new beginnings. The wedding, the months that followed were filled with bustling preparations. Word spread quickly through the village. Alyima, the granddaughter of Mama Nena, had found love in a way that was both honorable and grand. Families whispered, neighbors gossiped, and women sang Mama's praises. Chibuzo's people came properly, carrying wine, cola nuts, and yam tubers in baskets so heavy they needed 3 men each to lift them. The bride price list, long and daunting, was settled without quarrel or delay. Chibuzo's family moved with humility and generosity, and the elders marveled. "This man respects tradition," they murmured. "He values his bride." In the weeks leading to the wedding, village women would often stop by Mama's shop. Some helped her weave new mats, others gave wrappers for Alyima's trousseau. Mama Nena, once the subject of pity, now walked the streets with her head held high. On the wedding day itself, the ceremony was grand beyond imagination. The church was filled to overflowing, with choirs singing, trumpets blaring, and women dancing in colorful wrappers. Outside, canopies lined the compound. White and gold chairs sparkled under the afternoon sun. Laughter filled the air, drums rolled, dancers stomped their feet, and plates of steaming jollof, spicy goat meat, fried fish, and cool drinks passed endlessly through eager hands. Nothing was lacking. Chibuzo spared no expense to show his bride honor. When Alyima stepped out in her gown, radiant and glowing, Mama Nena wept so openly that women had to dab her tears with their handkerchiefs. She cried not out of sorrow, but out of gratitude. Gratitude that her granddaughter had not only found love but had been treated like royalty. By the time the celebrations ended, songs had been sung, gifts had been exchanged, and blessings had been poured out. And Alyima, once a little girl who grew up in her grandmother's shadow, was now Mrs. Chibuzo. The mansion, her first day in her new home, felt like stepping into a dream she never thought she would see. The mansion towered with tall ceilings that echoed their footsteps. Chandeliers glittered like hanging stars. The floors were marble, smooth and cold beneath her feet. The kitchen gleamed with appliances she had only seen in magazines. A microwave, a double-door fridge, an oven with shiny buttons. Each room she entered opened into another, until Alyima stopped mid-step, whispering to herself, "This is too much." She ran her hand across the velvet drapes, the polished wood, the wide bed layered with pillows. Felt like a palace. Yet as night fell, the grandeur slowly turned hollow. The house was quiet, too quiet. For the first time in her life, she was without Mama Nena sleeping nearby, without her soft voice singing night prayers or the familiar sound of wrappers rustling in the dark. The wide bed felt strange. The silence pressed on her heart until it ached with homesickness. That evening, lying with her head against Chibuzo's shoulder, she whispered, Can Mama Nena come stay with us for now? Just until I get used to everything? Chibuzo turned and smiled warmly, brushing his hand over her cheek. Of course, my love. Whatever makes you happy. The very next morning, Alyama called her grandmother. Her voice trembled as she spoke. Mama, this house is too big. I feel lost without you. Mama chuckled softly, already expecting the call. My baby, I'll pack my bag. When she arrived days later, Chibuzo welcomed her with honor. He had prepared a guest room with familiar touches. A soft prayer mat, a Bible beside the bed, even a small stool for her evening devotions. To Mama, it felt like stepping into royalty, yet she never let pride carry her away. She only whispered blessings at the dinner table, thanking God that her old age was not filled with loneliness, but with laughter and honor. In the mornings, Alyama and Mama cooked together in the spacious kitchen. Moi, yam porridge, akara, and pap. Their laughter filled the house as Mama told stories of old Nsuka and taught her granddaughter new recipes. In the evenings, the two sat on the balcony, watching the sun dip behind the hills, sipping tea as they talked of the future. Chibuzo often returned from work to find them together, smiling, and it filled his heart with pride. In that mansion, love, family, and peace grew like strong roots. For Mama, it was full circle. She had raised Amarachi in tears and hardship, but now she watched her granddaughter live the life Amarachi never had. A quiet worry. But even in palaces, storms can whisper. One midnight, Mama Nena awoke thirsty. She tied her wrapper tightly, slipped into her slippers, and padded quietly downstairs for water. But as she passed the living room, she froze. From upstairs came Alyama's voice, strained, broken, not of joy but of discomfort. A muffled cry, then another louder. Mama's hand trembled on the water bottle. Her heart skipped. She stood rooted, torn between rushing up and staying silent. At last, she sighed and walked back quietly to her room. They were married. Privacy mattered. But that night, Mama could not sleep. The next morning, after Chibuzo had left for work, Mama called Alyama gently into her room. My daughter, forgive me if I pry, she began softly. But last night I heard you, not in joy but in pain. Are you all right? Have you and your husband started living as man and wife? Alyama's cheeks flushed crimson. Her eyes dropped, her fingers twisting the hem of her wrapper. After a long silence, she nodded shyly. Mama, not really. We've been trying. He is patient, but it's painful. I've never done it before, and she paused, lowering her voice to a whisper. Mama, he's too big. It won't pass. For over a week we've been trying, but it feels impossible. She reached for Alyama's trembling hand, covering it with her own. Alyama, thank you for telling me the truth. This is not uncommon. For women who marry as virgins, the beginning can be painful. And if the man is heavily built, it can be harder. But your body will adjust, with time, patience, and understanding. Alyama's voice cracked. He's patient, Mama. He says he doesn't want to hurt me, but I feel like I'm disappointing him. No, my daughter, Mama said firmly, her voice thick with love. You're not failing anyone. You're learning. Marriage is not a race. Don't force what causes pain. Talk openly with him. Be gentle with yourself. There are even ways to ease it, ointments, lubricants, even medical advice if needed. And above all, pray. Understanding must guide love, even in the bedroom. Alyama's eyes brimmed with tears of relief. Thank you, Mama. I was so afraid you'd be angry. Mama cupped her granddaughter's cheek. Angry? Never. I am proud you came to me. Don't carry burdens in silence. This season will pass, and joy will come. I promise you. That morning, Alyama left her grandmother's room lighter. The shame she carried had melted away. With Mama's wisdom steadying her, she resolved to walk through the season of marriage not with fear, but with patience, prayer, and courage. And in her heart, she whispered, If Mama is with me, I will endure, and love will blossom. The decision to seek help. That evening, after dinner, Alyama and Chibuzo sat together in the living room. The chandelier above cast a warm golden glow across their faces, softening the edges of the silence between them. Alyama's fingers twisted nervously against her lap as she gathered the courage to speak. "Chibuzo," she began softly, her voice calm but firm. "I've been thinking. Maybe we should see a doctor about this." Her husband looked at her, surprise flickering in his eyes before it melted into admiration. She continued quickly, her words careful. "You've been patient. I see how much you try not to pressure me, and I appreciate you. But the pain hasn't gone away. Instead of forcing it, maybe a doctor can help guide us." For a moment he simply held her gaze. Then he reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "Yes," he said, nodding without hesitation. "You're right. I've been thinking the same thing, but I didn't want you to feel I was pushing. We'll go tomorrow, first thing in the morning." And he meant it. The clinic visit. The next day, Chibuzo took time off work and drove Alyama to a private women's clinic in the city. The waiting room smelled faintly of antiseptic, but the walls were painted in pastel colors, and soft gospel music played quietly in the background. It felt safe. The doctor who welcomed them was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a calm, steady voice. She shook Alyama's hand firmly and looked her in the eye, as though to say, "You are not alone." At first, Alyama was shy. Her words came out haltingly, her eyes lowered, but the doctor's warmth melted the fear away. She listened carefully, asked gentle questions, and after a brief examination, gave a reassuring smile. "This is not unusual at all," she explained. "Many young wives, especially those who marry as virgins, experience this kind of difficulty. It takes time, relaxation, trust, and patience. But since the pain is persistent, I'll recommend something to help." She handed Alyama a small tube of cream. "This will numb the nerves for a short while so you won't feel sharp pain. Use just a little only when you're ready. And remember, take your time. No rushing." For the first time in days, Alyama felt hope rising inside her chest. The first attempt after. That evening, after a quiet meal, Alyama sat in their bedroom holding the cream in her hand. Her heart beat so fast she could hear it in her ears, but her face remained composed. She called softly, "Chibuzo." He looked up from where he sat near the edge of the bed. "I want us to try again," she said, lifting the tube slightly. "With this." He searched her eyes carefully. "Only if you're ready." She nodded. "I'm ready." She slipped into the bathroom, applied a small amount as instructed, and waited a few minutes before returning. She wore a soft, simple gown, her hair loose, her breathing shallow but steady. Chibuzo stood as she entered, his movements slow, his smile gentle. He met her with tenderness, as always. He kissed her forehead first, then her cheek, lingering in closeness. His touch was light, meant to reassure rather than ignite. They lingered in laughter, whispered words of love, and soft embraces before attempting again. The struggle and breakthrough. When he tried once more, it wasn't that different at first. His careful attempt met with resistance, and Alyama winced, gently pushing him back. He stopped immediately, worry in his eyes. But instead of pulling away completely, he tried another approach, his fingers. One first, slow and gentle. To their surprise, it slid in without the sharp agony of before. She tensed, but endured. Then he added a second, moving slowly. This time, her gasp wasn't entirely of pain. "The cream is working," she whispered breathlessly. Encouraged, he massaged gently, patient and kind, helping her body learn to relax. For the first time, her body gave way, even if only slightly. Chibuzo, always cautious, prepared himself further, applying lubricant before trying again. He leaned close, pressing his forehead against hers as if to say, "We are in this together." Slowly, step by step, he eased forward. Alyama gripped the sheets, her body trembling. She could feel the stretching, the tearing sensation, every nerve screaming at once. She pushed him back slightly, but he kissed her hand, whispering, "Just a little more. Only if you can." And then, with a final push, he was in. She gasped loudly, her breath broken, tears springing to her eyes. Pain flared through her body, raw and sharp, but then, slowly, so slowly, it dulled. The cream and his gentleness worked hand in hand. He stayed still, refusing to move until she gave the slightest nod. Then he began to stroke, gently, carefully. First, it was all discomfort. Alyama clutched at him, half wanting to push him away, half pulling him closer. But then, something shifted. The sharpness softened, and the pain gave way to something new. A flicker of warmth, a trembling wave of pleasure. Her hands, once pressing against his chest, wrapped around his back, holding him tighter. Her quiet whimpers turned into soft moans. And for the first time they found a rhythm. A listener in the hall. Down the hallway, Mama Nena stirred in her room. She had risen for water, but froze when she heard the sounds drifting through the quiet mansion. She stood by her door, her heart caught between emotions. The muffled cries and moans of her granddaughter, so unfamiliar and raw, brought back memories she had buried for decades. She remembered her own youth, her nights with Obinna, long before death turned her bed cold. Her chest rose and fell quickly. It had been over 25 years since she had last felt the weight of a man, the intimacy of flesh. The sounds of Alyama's awakening stirred something she thought had long died inside her. She pressed a hand to her chest, trembling, her breath shallow. But after a long while, she stepped back quietly, closing her door. She would not disturb them. Still, that night she lay awake, her own memories haunting her, her body restless with desires long forgotten. When at last it was over, Alyama and Chibuzo lay side by side in silence. The air was heavy, filled with the faint scent of sweat and something new, something that marked a turning point in their marriage. For a long while neither spoke. They only breathed together, their hearts slowing from the storm. Finally, Chibuzo whispered, his voice low and tender. "Are you okay?" Alyama turned toward him, smiling through tears. Her cheeks were damp, but her eyes glowed softly. "Yes," she whispered, her voice breaking. "It didn't hurt, not like before. I didn't think it would ever happen. But it did." He pulled her close, kissing her forehead gently. "I love you, Alyama. Always." And with those words, a new chapter began. One not of fear, but of discovery. A new beginning. That night was more than just the beginning of physical intimacy. It was a sealing of trust, the strengthening of their emotional bond. They had walked through fear and discomfort together, with patience and respect, and it left them both changed. For Alyama, it felt like crossing a threshold. No longer just a bride, but a true wife. For Chibuzo, it was proof that love was not only in words, but in endurance and gentleness. And for Mama Nena, who had stood silently in the shadows of the night, it was a restless awakening. She went back to her room immediately, but her sleep never came. Lying flat on her bed, she stared into the ceiling as memories long buried returned. The sounds she had overheard, the soft cries, the muffled gasps, the rhythm of two becoming one, stirred parts of her soul she had locked away since Obinna's death. 25 years of silence in her own body pressed down on her, making her ache with a longing she could not confess. All night she tossed and turned, her heart torn between gratitude for her granddaughter's blossoming love and a private hunger that left her restless. The morning after. The next morning, the mansion stirred to life with the first rays of dawn. Alyama rose earlier than usual, a glow resting lightly on her face. She was brighter, lighter, and her steps carried a softness Chibuzo immediately noticed as he prepared for work. They had only managed one gentle round the night before, Chibuzo insisting they go slow and give her body time to heal before they tried again. Still, it was enough to leave her spirit radiant. After he left, Alyama tied her wrapper and went into the kitchen where Mama Nena was already peeling yam. She entered with a smile that spoke without words. Mama looked up, catching it instantly. "My daughter," she asked, raising an eyebrow playfully. "What is making you so happy and bright this morning?" Alyama blushed, her smile widening. "Mama, we finally did it." Mama's eyes softened, her knife pausing mid-air. "Ah, so, how was it?" It was painful, Alyama admitted honestly, her voice low. But later, it was a bit okay. He was patient. He said it will get better with time. Mama nodded slowly, returning her gaze to the yam. Yes, it will. With time, your body will open, and the pain will give way to joy. But as she spoke those words of reassurance, something stirred inside her chest. The words she said to Alyama echoed back at her, piercing her own heart. It will get better with time. For her, time had been 25 long years of emptiness. As Alyama helped in the kitchen, Mama's thoughts betrayed her. She imagined what her granddaughter had described. The pain, yes, but then the easing into warmth, the holding, the closeness. She remembered her own youth, how Obinna once made her legs tremble, how passion filled their nights before illness stole him away. When Alyama mentioned with shy laughter that Chibuzo was very big down there, Mama's hands shook slightly. Curiosity struck her like a whisper she didn't want to admit. She wanted to see, to know, to remember what it meant to be desired. By the time breakfast was ready, her face was calm again. But inside, her thoughts were not. Fading intimacy. The days turned into weeks, and though their marriage remained warm, a quiet struggle grew. Alyama was not adjusting as quickly as she had hoped. Even with the numbing cream, intimacy was still painful for her, and soon she began avoiding it. When Chibuzo reached for her at night, she would gently push him away, murmuring excuses. Sometimes she agreed, but it was rare, once, maybe twice in a month, and always brief. Her heart loved him deeply, but her body betrayed her with fear and discomfort. Chibuzo tried to endure it with patience. He reminded himself that love was more than the body, that her happiness mattered more than his own need. But desire is not something that vanishes. Slowly, quietly, he began to suffer. Some nights, after failed attempts, he would slip into the bathroom and relieve himself in silence, ashamed but desperate to ease the tension in his body. It was not betrayal, not in his heart, it was survival. He told himself it was better this than forcing her into pain. But the distance grew. The breaking point. One night, after another attempt ended with Alyama turning away in tears of pain, Chibuzo lay beside her, staring at the ceiling. Frustration pricked at him, not anger at her, but anger at the situation. At himself for not knowing how to fix it, at fate for placing such a barrier between them. Words escaped before he could hold them back. How long will this continue? Am I not enough for you? Alyama's eyes filled with hurt. Chibuzo, I'm trying. You think I don't want to give myself fully to you? You think I like disappointing you? The room fell into heavy silence. Neither of them meant harm, but the unspoken weight pressed between them. Finally, Chibuzo stood, grabbing his wrapper. I need air, he muttered and walked out. He went downstairs to one of the spare rooms, his chest heavy, his body burning. Alone, he shut the bathroom door, leaned against the sink, and let his frustration pour into the only escape he had left. The watcher. Down the hallway, Mama Nena stirred. She had been half asleep, but the sound of footsteps pulling into the spare room woke her. Curious, she tied her wrapper and padded quietly down the hall. She paused at the door, hearing faint, unmistakable sounds from inside. Her heart thudded in her chest as realization dawned. Chibuzo. She hesitated, her breath shallow, then pushed the door slightly ajar. What she saw made her freeze. Her son-in-law, standing in the bathroom, lost in his struggle, his body exposed, his hand moving with a desperation that spoke more of loneliness than lust. Shock, and something darker swirled in her chest. She should turn away, she knew. She should walk back quietly. But her legs rooted her to the spot. 25 years of longing, 25 years of silence, 25 years of emptiness roared back inside her. She bit her lip, her throat dry, her heart beating harder than it had in years. He was masturbating. She was shocked. She never expected to see something like that. Then Chibuzo heard a sound and turned. He saw Mama Nena. She was more surprised when she saw his 7-inch dick. She wasn't even looking at his face. Her eyes had dropped lower, fixed on the part of him he wished she had never seen. Chibuzo noticed it immediately, the way her gaze lingered too long. His throat tightened, and he cleared his voice harshly, forcing sound into the heavy silence.
Mama blinked.
Startled, as though waking from a trance. I'm sorry, she stammered. Her words came out rushed, uneven. I didn't mean to bother you. I was only… She trailed off, then whispered the unthinkable. Do you want some help? The question struck him like a slap. Chibuzzo froze, shame and shock flooding him at once. No, he said quickly, his voice breaking. No, absolutely not. He turned away, fumbling for the tap, washing himself in frantic haste as though water could cleanse the moment. Without looking back, he tied his wrapper, pushed past her and left the room. The weight of silence. He walked upstairs in silence, his chest tight, his mind racing. When he entered the bedroom, Alyama was already asleep, her soft breathing steady in the dim light. Chibuzzo stood at the doorway, staring at her, guilt crashing over him in waves. What just happened? He thought. Why didn't I lock the door? Why did I leave it half open like that? He slipped into bed beside his wife, but sleep would not come. All night he replayed it. The stare, the question, the shame. No matter how he turned, he couldn't escape it.
Mama Nena's restlessness.
Downstairs, Mama Nena remained rooted in the empty room long after he left. 30 minutes passed, maybe more, and she was still there, gripping the edge of the stool, her chest rising and falling in uneven rhythms. Her mind betrayed her, painting forbidden images she tried to chase away. She imagined what it would feel like to be touched again after so many decades of silence, to feel like a woman and not just a grandmother. Memories of Obinna, long gone, buried with time, rose to the surface, mingling with the dangerous reality of what she had just witnessed. Her hands trembled, her lips pressed together. Shame burned her cheeks, yet desire gnawed at her. When she finally returned to her room, sleep refused her. She lay on her bed, wide awake, listening to the silence of the mansion. Her ears strained for the sound of footsteps, for the creak of the stairs, for any hint that Chibuzzo might go downstairs again. But he didn't. The house remained still, and Mama Nena, with her body restless and her soul heavy, realized with dread that something had been awakened in her. Something she could no longer pretend was dead. Thanks for watching. Kindly like, share with friends and subscribe for more amazing stories.